his second career pole, Scott Pruitt, comes with a brand new track record. He'll be alongside Gil de Ferran, a second-place finisher here a year ago. On row 2, Christian Fittipaldi returns to the series from injuries received in Australia, and he was the quickest in the morning warm-up. He'll start next to Mauricio Gugelmin, his Brazilian countryman, who led 24 the last 25 laps 2 weeks ago in Detroit, but did not finish. Row 3, Dario Franchitti, the Scottish rookie. This equals the best qualifying performance of his career, alongside Michael Andretti, a three-time winner here at Portland. Row 4, Alex Zanardi, the defending race champion. His first win came here a year ago. He's next to his Target Ganassi Racing teammate Jimmy Vasser, who has completed all but one lap this season, is going for his 26th in a row here today, and that would be a record. Row 5, Greg Moore, the winner of the last 2 races on tour, and Bobby Rahal, who won here 10 years ago. On row 6, Mark Blundell, the leader at Detroit with 2 turns to go before running out of gas, and Brian Herta, his 4th start here at Portland, looking for his first finish. Row 7 will be Paul Tracy. The points leader is back after missing our most recent race due to a medical problem. Next to him, Raul Boesel, making his 11th start at PIR. On row 8, Al Unser Jr., who has won here 3 times, including his first career win in 1984, and Adrian Fernandez. In 3 previous starts, he's been in the points every time. On row 9, Juan Fangio II, who scored the best 97 finish for a Toyota-powered car 2 weeks ago in Detroit, 10th place, and P.J. Jones, his teammate, for the 5th time this year. The All-American racer Toyotas qualify in tandem. Row 10, Parker Johnstone, a local favorite who had a 5th place finish here a year ago, and Andre Ribeiro, who continues to struggle with the Lola chassis for Tasman Racing. On row 11, Walter Salas, his first pro win came here last year in Indy Lights, and Michel Jourdain Jr., who switches over from a Lola to a Reynard chassis for this race. On row 12, Patrick Carpentier, but for Jimmy Vasser, the only driver to be running at the finish at every race thus far this year, and Richie Hearn, one of 7 drivers in the field making their first Portland start. On row 13, Max Pappas, his best finish of the year, 11th, came at Detroit 2 weeks ago, and Christian Danner, in his first start at 2 years at Detroit, he scored a point. On row 14, Hiro Matsushita, making his 7th start here at Portland International Raceway. Young German Arndt Meyer, this is his first start with kart on a natural road course. Now, Danny, let's talk about the racetrack itself.
Well, of course, the most important spot for passing is right down in this area, going into this corner right there. That's also one of the most dangerous because it's very wide. It bottlenecks down into there. Another good spot for passing is right there. And then a very dangerous, tricky spot because you think you can get by everybody is right there going into turn 5. We have passing at the end of the straightaway, very tricky, particularly under these wet conditions today. And another spot that everybody likes is right here, but we've seen a lot of incidences in that spot in the past. This is a good track to pass on. It's wide and it's got a lot of spots to overtake.
And if the sun does come out, it dries very quickly. But as you can see right now, it is very, very wet. 1 lap to go to the green flag, down to Gary Gerald.
Bob, we've talked about fuel management virtually every race this year, and it's had a critical impact on the outcome. Evidence the last race when the PacWest team ran out of fuel on the final lap and was denied an opportunity to win. But because of the rain today, fuel no longer is an issue. You normally get around 2 miles per gallon in these cars, but under the rain conditions today, you get about 3 to 3.5 miles per gallon. That doesn't mean that your pit stop management still isn't critical in relation to positions on the racetrack. So a lot of key decisions to be made down here. Shouldn't have to worry about fuel. How about tires, Marty Reed?
Gary, this is going to be the first time since last year that Firestone and Goodyear are going to lock horns in a wet weather condition. If you remember last year, the Firestones were just awful. Now they've come back with a brand new combination. They did 400,000 gallons of water at Firebird Raceway and a ton of testing, and they think they have narrowed the gap. In fact, Al Spire, the head of Firestone Management Racing, is excited, ecstatic about this showdown. He wants to see how good his wet weather tire is. But I can tell you, it's starting to slow down, so we may see the slicks if we get some dry conditions.
And if you were with us for qualifying, you know how quickly things can change. Here's our race analysis. A 1.967-mile permanent road course, 98 laps scheduled. The pole speed, a new track record by a couple of miles an hour, breaking a record held by Al Unser Jr. with the race distance mark, as you saw. The stories will follow today. Weather is everything. Who will guess the conditions to perfection? Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi are back in the fold. Fuel strategy, as we mentioned, you're going to want to spend a minimum of time in the pits. And who has the streaks that will continue when this day is over? Look at the spray as they come down to take the green flag.
And you can't see anything back there. Let me tell you, those guys cannot tell where the other car is back there.
Coming up the driver's right, looked like Dario Franchitti was looking to make up some places. Oh, we've got cars off onto the grass.
Ran a little wide there. He's trying to get himself back on the track.
Gently on the throttle to bring the car up to speed. Look at that spray, and we've got someone tagged from behind. I think that is Dario Franchitti.
What happened was the car next to him looked like moved over on him. He had nowhere to go.
Up front, no problem for Scott Pruitt as he leads the field. That's Gil de Ferran directly behind him, and Pruitt opening up a couple of quick car lengths.
And let's not forget, he's on Firestone tires.
Now there's Mauricio Gugelmin in the red and white car with a bright orange helmet, challenging his Brazilian countryman Gil de Ferran for second place as they move on to the backstretch. Oh, wheel to wheel, Bobby Rahal is off. This is down in the west end, the turns 3, 4, and 5 complex. That's turn 5 just behind him. He's off on the grass, and the grass is absolutely super saturated. We've had over an inch of rain here in the last 12 hours at Portland. Now Scott Pruitt throws up that rooster tail over the battle for second between de Ferran and Gugelmin. In the festival curves.
And look how slick that is. If it looks shiny, if it looks slick, it is slick. That's something that a race driver always has to think about. Look at Gil de Ferran. He spun off.
Fortunately, a lot of grass out there. He's not going to slow down very much, but there's very little to hit out there. He is back on. Michael Andretti goes by. Jimmy Vasser goes by. Dario Franchitti goes by, and Mark Blundell comes calling on Gil de Ferran.
And Greg Moore trying to get around the outside. Take advantage of that.
3 or 4 cars bottled up behind Gil de Ferran. One of them is Paul Tracy.
And he slips through on Blundell. He took advantage of all of that.
Now on to the backstretch, and once again the spray will go up, preventing the drivers from seeing. Even when it's clear, the drivers can only see about 1 second's worth of reaction time ahead of them. De Ferran, Tracy, Blundell, Zanardi, and Moore.
And I had a peek. It looked like Dario Franchitti was trying to make a move on Michael Andretti. He's buried in that spray right behind him.
Christian Fittipaldi in the foreground.
See, he's taking a look up the inside. Michael's having none of that, though.
Tough outbreaking somebody even in the best of circumstances. Try it on this hockey rink of a racing circuit. You ride with Jimmy Vasser.
And you know what? That's about what the view is from the cockpit. When that car gets closer up behind there and the spray is really bad on the straightaways, they can't see anything.
This is one of the fastest circuits that the series visits all year long. And the order is Pruitt, Gugelmin, Fittipaldi, and Andretti right there, the teammates for Newman-Haas Racing. Then Dario Franchitti to the left of your screen, driving for Carl Hogan. Jimmy Vasser, Gil de Ferran, Paul Tracy, Mark Blundell, and Alex Zanardi round out the top 10. Safety truck coming on to the racetrack. Once again, Franchitti looking up the inside of Michael Andretti. Big splash, large puddle right there in that corner.
Oh, did you see him slide through there? He touched the curb a little bit, slid out there a little wide. Now, remember one thing, he's pulling out on Michael to take a look to see if he can pass, but he's also taking a look to see where he's going.
You ride with Jimmy Vasser.
That is a good indication of what it's like right there, and he passes Michael.
Franchitti, the Scottish veteran of touring car races in Europe, where the weather is not always very good. So Franchitti could very well be in his element. He's on a natural terrain road course, no street circuits, no oval tracks, with which he was so unfamiliar when he came into the series. Now he's back in his element, and that could include the weather. And now Jimmy Vasser, the reigning PPG Car World Series champion, eyes Michael Andretti, a former champion.
Let's not forget one thing. Michael is, look at him sliding around. He is on Goodyear cut tires. Franchitti is on Firestones, as is Jimmy Vasser right there behind him.
Keep in mind, this is the first wet weather race for the Swift chassis, so they're learning a lot about their wet weather setup right now. There's the running order. Pruitt over Gugelmin, Fittipaldi, Firestone, Firestone, Goodyear, Firestone, Goodyear, Firestone. Now here was the view from Gil de Ferran's car as he struggled to keep traction.
Now see, he hit that surface change right there. He went from concrete to asphalt, and when he hit that, it broke the back end loose.
Similar problems for Bobby Rahal. This was his view as he went off.
Different spot of the track. He's tippy-toeing around there, stands on the gas, gets it sideways, and he is gone.
You can hear the revs as the rear wheels break loose. That's the kind of day we're going to have here at Portland. Stand by for more live from Portland International Raceway. Welcome back to Portland in the rain. You're looking back from the car of Jimmy Vasser and Mark Blundell, running 7th and 8th.
Look, he is all over him trying to find a spot. Going down the inside of a very tricky corner there. You can see this track is quickly, the spray is going away as these cars dry it out with these big fat tires.
We mentioned at the top of the program, things can change very quickly here in Portland.
You see that view out his back? Sorry to interrupt, Bob. That gray sky is moving this way.
Now, while we were away, we had a change of lead. There you see Mo Guzman, and look at the gap he has opened up over Scott Pruitt. A pair of Reynards, but Mercedes power in Guzman's machine. A Ford in Pruitt's, both men on Firestone wet weather tire. And here comes a third Firestone shod car. Dario Franchitti up into 3rd place, a great run for the rookie. And then the defending race champion, Alex Zanardi. Here comes Christian Fittipaldi in the Swift on Goodyear rubber, his teammate Michael Andretti, then Blundell.
Bob, I'd say right now, though, the tire that I'd want to have is the Firestone.
Firestone says they were embarrassed a year ago at Detroit the first time they brought out their treaded wet weather tire. They've worked hard on it. Alex Zanardi has run on it, doing a lot of the development on the wet tire. Scott Pruitt has run on it. Gil de Ferran.
Oh, there's a cone out there. That was an orange cone that somebody obviously had picked up in their car.
That cone marks the chicane. Ferran spun his way back to 9th place in the opening laps of this race. Jimmy Vasser still looking for his first win this year. And it's starting to rain a little more heavily here at Portland. Coming down that curving backstretch.
Bob, you were talking about that Firestone development. More than 40 different constructions, compounds were tested, and all that work that Marty mentioned with all the water that was dumped at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix. Al Spire told us yesterday, a year ago when we were embarrassed in Detroit, after the rain session, I had every Firestone driver at the trailer demanding an explanation. Yesterday, when we practiced in the rain, I didn't hear from one driver. I think we've stepped up.
I would say so. There you see Michael Andretti, the only driver in the running for the MCI Million, a new program this year from MCI that will award a $1 million bonus to the driver who wins 4 selected events, one on each of the 4 types of circuits that make up the PPG Kart World Series. Michael, of course, won at Homestead on the short oval. If he can win here at Portland on a natural terrain road course, and Vancouver, Canada later this season on a temporary circuit, and at the season finale on the big super speedway, the California Speedway in Fontana, he will pick up $1 million, nearly $250,000 of which will go to his favorite charity. If he doesn't win today, some other driver wins. Both he and Andretti will be in the running for a $100,000 MCI bonus if they can win 3 of those 4 races.
Well, and I'm watching him on camera here, and his back end is very twitchy. It jumps out right when he turns in. It's starting to rain harder here at this part of the circuit where we're over here at pit out. There's a Valvoline car, dark blue and red, and right behind it, the light blue. That car right there on your camera was Greg Moore. The first one was Gil de Ferran.
What a roll Greg Moore has been on. Picked up his first victory, making him the youngest winner in PPG Kart World Series history. That was at Milwaukee. Won again at Detroit in the most dramatic way when Mark Blundell and Mauricio Gugelmin both ran out of fuel on the last lap. If he were to win today, he would be 1 day older than the previous record holder, Al Unser Jr. This is the view from our Honda Helicam. Amazing the visibility is so good from up here. The cloud layer is very low. You can see just how carefully the drivers have to be. Moore clipped that orange cone. That driver by driver is making its way around the track.
See that puddle there where they hit the puddles down on the curbing? Sometimes the curbing will hold water in there. And you see guys there took a different line. He went out there wide. Sometimes there is more grip offline than there is online because everybody in the drive drives the natural line, and that puts down a lot of oil and gas and makes the track slippery when water gets on it.
That's 9th, de Ferran, and 10th, Raul Boesel just behind them. Excuse me, Greg Moore in 10th. Raul Boesel is behind them in 11th. Mauricio Gugelmin is leading. He's led 3 of the last 5 races on tour. We'll be back live in a moment. Back at Portland, the rain now pouring down as we get set to go green. Quickly down to Marty Reed.
What's really interesting with our spotter communications down here, the guys that are in the back of the pack are complaining like crazy about the weather conditions. They'd like to see this thing stop for a while because it's so wet they can't see. But the guys that are running up front, surprisingly, they're not complaining at all.
No surprise there as Mauricio Gugelmin leads the field off the corner. Juan Fangio is back out on the racetrack after an extended pit stop. You see him, well, you don't see him very well, but he's in there. And he is 3 laps down. Jimmy Vasser challenged by
Michael Andretti, I think.
Michael Andretti went by. There's Alex Zanardi with Dario Franchitti, or as Scott Pruitt calls him, Franchetti.
See, they're still battling side by side.
See the rain light on the car ahead. Useful some of the time, but when the spray gets this thick, it's hard to spot that rain light.
Well, Bob, you have to get in. The light is on permanently, but you have to get very close to the car to see it when the spray is that bad. It's a very bright light, but it really helps you only when you're up close. See how gingerly they're on the throttle, just trying to squeeze it on there. Whoa!
Patrick Carpentier goes around.
Keep going, Patrick.
He has been very unhappy with the balance of this car all weekend. He seems to have found his groove on the oval tracks. But here on the road course, where you might think he would be very comfortable, the Alumax Bettenhausen Motorsports team has been struggling to get a balance in the race car. He still leads the Jim Truman Rookie of the Year standings by 21 points over Dario Franchitti. Scott Pruitt, Franchitti, and Alex Zanardi running 2, 3, and 4. Behind them, Mark Blundell, who started 11th, is up to 5th. And Zanardi flashes by. Now here's a guy with his Formula One experience, many years of racing in Europe, who should be very good under the conditions.
Bob, what happened there is he put the power down better than Franchitti did coming out on that concrete at the chicane, and he just accelerated right up the inside of him when they come onto that little short straightaway.
Word from the officials is that Juan Fangio will be in and penalized for a blend line violation, entering or exiting the pits. Close look there at Alex Zanardi. He and his teammate Jimmy Vasser and Al Unser Jr. flew out of Portland last night to engage in a round of the International Race of Champions at the California Speedway down in Fontana. They were back last night. And no, I'm not going to tell you how they did. You're going to have to wait and find out.
Bob, just to explain to everybody what that blend line is there's a line coming into the pits and going out of the pits that they can't pass somebody else on the track or the pace car. I don't know what the violation was, but I saw that Fangio, when he came out, was just ahead of the pace car.
Now notice not only how thick that spray is, but how it hangs in the air. We have very little breeze blowing here at Portland today, so nothing to help that spray dissipate. Moore right up behind Fittipaldi, edges to the inside in the festival curves. That was close.
He did a very professional job, though, there. He could have clipped him and spun Christian right around.
Christian Fittipaldi, 75 days away from the sport, not even in the race car. In fact, in a wheelchair for 20 of those days. There is the battle between he and Moore for 8th place.
Remember, Christian Fittipaldi is on Goodyear tires and Greg Moore is on Firestones.
Fittipaldi was asking for rain. He said it made it easier on his driving. Oh, and Moore definitely the quicker car through these turns, looking for a way by. Mercedes looking for its 6th straight victory. No engine builder has done that since 1991, when the Ilmore Chevrolet swept a season. 17 straight victories. Among our other streaks, Canadian drivers, of which there are 3. Greg Moore, Paul Tracy, and Patrick Carpentier looking for their 6th in a row. They're already leading the Nations Cup competition over the American contingent. Out of the spray they come. A replay of the last lap at the first turn in the Festival Corners. Fittipaldi manages to keep Moore behind him. Speaking of Paul Tracy, keep in mind he and Al Unser Jr. are also looking for Roger Penske's 100th victory in PPG Cup Championship car competition. Mauricio Gugelmin remains up front. The 3rd race in the last 5 that Big Mo has led. The other 2 being Rio de Janeiro, where he started from pole, and the Detroit Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. For the past 2 years, the United States has captured the Nations Cup, which tallies the points scored by the highest finishing driver from each competing nation. Most recent opposition has come from Brazil and Canada. Thus far this year, the Canadians have led the way, behind Paul Tracy's 3 straight wins at Nazareth, Rio de Janeiro, and St. Louis. And countryman Greg Moore, who captured the 2 most recent rounds in Milwaukee and Detroit. Thus Canada leads in both total points and victories with 5. But behind the Maple Leafs come the Americans, led by Michael Andretti and his win in the season opener in Homestead, Florida, and Scott Pruitt's victory on the streets of Surfers Paradise, Australia. The U.S. sits in a close 2nd in points despite just 2 victories. Here are the complete Nations Cup standings. All 9 countries with a driver in the PPG Kart World Series have scored, and it's worth noting that although England, Scotland, Argentina, and Germany are each represented by a single driver, Canada has just 3. Welcome back to Portland International Raceway, where we remain under a full course caution, although we expect a green flag shortly as the kart Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 continues. Now here at the announce position, I am joined by kart's Vice President of Communications, Ron Richards. Ron, thanks for joining us. Let me ask you how the decision was arrived at to stop this rain, or at least to throw the yellow for water out there.
Well, Bob, what we have is a situation where there's quite a bit of standing water, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep the track as safe as possible. This really is a situation that's similar in many ways to what we had in St. Louis, where we continue to run for many laps under yellow before we were able to go back, but you don't want to lose the racetrack here, and keeping the cars out helps keep the water off the racing line.
Now at the same time, you have to be sensitive to the fact that you've got a tire competition going on out there between Firestone and Goodyear. The relative merits of each tire's wet weather capability has been demonstrated in the past. Surely that must enter into it as well.
Well, as I said, you know, we really do everything we can to make it as safe as we can. Certainly the tire competition is something that's very heated, as is all the competition in the series, but we're happy that we have the opportunity to do what we can to keep the track as it is, as we have right now.
Is there any particular part of the racetrack that corner workers are telling you is particularly bad?
There's a couple of spots around the track. I'd have to look back right now. I don't know off the top of my head. There's a couple of places that we had to work extra hard on to get the water off.
Now, how long do you think we might be down for this? I mean, we said we've got a green flag coming out shortly. Do you expect this kind of interruption throughout the day? The weather forecast looking better?
Well, the weather right now, it's a lot of come and go with the rain. A little bit harder, a little bit less. Right now it looks like maybe we'll get a little bit less right after this period of a little bit heavier rain. Hopefully we'll be able to get the race in and move things along as quickly as we can under the situations where you have less rain coming down.
Well, we certainly have rain coming down now. You have to be pleased with the way the competitiveness of the series has developed. Our margin of victory less than 2 seconds on average for the 8 races we've run thus far.
Yeah, the closeness of the series is something that's really great for us. It's great for the fans. It's great for the competition among all of our manufacturers and sponsors, and we're really happy about that.
All right, thanks for joining us, Ron. Let's get down to Gary Gerald in the pit lane.
We heard from Al Spire and Firestone's story, and of course the success they're enjoying with their new generation rain tire. We came over to Goodyear and wanted to see if anybody would comment on the situation. They declined to come on camera at this time. Obviously they're concerned. They continue ongoing development with the rain tire. They tell us that the tire that's being used today by the Goodyear drivers is the same tire that they had grand success in the rain a year ago at Detroit with. So they thought coming in that they were confident. Obviously now they're very concerned. So that's the situation from the Goodyear camp. We get ready to go green, Bob.
All right, thank you, Gary. Mauricio Gugelmin leads. Scott Pruitt and Alex Zanardi. That's P.J. Jones in one of Dan Gurney's All-American Racers Toyota Reynard, second in line. He moves to the outside to let the quicker cars come through. PJ now a lap down. Restart on lap 25 of 98 scheduled, and once again the rooster tail rises to the dark skies over Portland.
Look at that cloud in the background. I can tell you, I've been there before. It's not a comfortable feeling when you can't see.
A dance with the devil in every sense of the term. Christian Fittipaldi, Raul Boesel just behind him, then Al Unser Jr., and then de Ferran being challenged by, I think that was Parker Johnstone, for whom this is very much a home race. He's built a new home this year in Brush Prairie, Washington, just across the Columbia River on the Washington side. Although half the residents of his old hometown, Redmond, Oregon, are down here watching him. There is Mo Gugelmin, who came so close to that long-sought first PPG Kart World Series victory 2 weeks ago in Detroit before the fuel gave out. There is Scott Pruitt, coming off his second career pole position. A dramatic battle between he and Gil de Ferran. There is Alex Zanardi, running in third spot.
And Dario Franchitti's right there trying to take advantage of any slip by either one of those two in front of him.
The order is Gugelmin, Pruitt, Zanardi, Franchitti, Mark Blundell having a good run again. Greg Moore, Christian Fittipaldi, Raul Boesel, Gil de Ferran, and Al Unser Jr. the top 10.
And of course you can see how little spray there is when they slow down, but the problem for the driver is any moisture that goes on their visor at that stage, because there is no speed in the car, doesn't get washed away as quickly as it does on the straightaways.
Once again, interesting wide turns by Alex Zanardi. It's worth noting that sometimes these wet weather tires work better when there's a little more water out there than when there's none at all.
Well, also the fact that there's no groove out there, so there's not a lot of oil and fuel that's been dumped and rubber that's been out there when the dry conditions set in, and they get out there on that clean track. Even though it's moist, it's oftentimes the quicker way around.
Lots of water as you see that marshmallow effect around the tires. Now, we've had a round of pit stops. Let's get down to Marty Reed for more on pit strategy.
Well, guys, there's a lot of teams that are starting to think about this as a timed race. We're past the 35-minute mark. We're not even anywhere close to about the quarter mark as far as laps. So they're starting to calculate a little bit more yellow, and fuel will again come into play. We might see this become a one-stop race, believe it or not, for some of these teams if the rain keeps the lap times in the 1:17 range. The other key will be if it does start to dry out, how fast will those tires start to wear when it does start to dry? This could get real interesting.
Now let's talk about what Marty just mentioned, thinking this as a timed race. It is set for 98 laps, but CART also has a rule that no race will go beyond 2 hours in time, very much like Formula One does. And that will play into strategy, as it did on the streets of Surfers Paradise, Australia earlier this year.
Maybe it's already played into some strategy for the Newman-Haas team. Remember when we did that interview with Derek Walker, we commented that Michael Andretti went by us pulling out of the pits. He came in early, got a full complement of fuel, and the crew then told him that if it stays wet, as it is now, that he's good to go the distance. So it would be a one-stop race. Now that seems improbable, but again, you get such good mileage under the extreme wet conditions. The key then becomes, as Marty said, does it dry, and if so, how much? And to the west, we notice that the sky is remarkably lighter than it was just 10 minutes ago.
Well, Gary, one of the reasons they get such good fuel mileage in wet conditions is they have to really squeeze on the throttle. Most places they can't go full throttle, so you're not opening up those butterflies in the injection system or the turbo. Well, that was a little close for Scott. And anyway, so they don't use as much fuel because they're very gentle on the throttle. And there's probably only 2 spots here that they're wide open all the way around the track.
Zanardi down the inside of Pruitt for second place.
Same spot he tried it before, where he went wide and got on the grass and had to drop back into third.
After the great successes of last year in his Rookie of the Year season and that streak of pole positions and front row starts that ended earlier this year, Alex Zanardi may have gone off the boil just that little bit. He's looking for some results. He's been through some very frustrating times. He had the incident at Detroit 2 weeks ago where he and Paul Tracy went toe-to-toe over some alleged blocking on the racetrack. maybe a little tension showing in Alex Zanardi's driving of late.
Well, and he also had not the best IROC race yesterday. He said it was one of his worst days in racing, and he was not real pleased with the performance, so I'm sure he's trying to make up for that as well.
Earlier we saw Bobby Rahal off the track and on. Marty Reed has more on his situation.
Yeah, guys, talked to Jimmy Prescott, and Bobby's been on the radio saying he's honestly thinking about pulling this thing in because they're so far down, and he thinks it's so dangerous out there since they have no chance of winning. He's several laps down. We'll keep you posted, but that would be new and different for Rahal. I've never seen him pull it in before.
Bobby Rahal, 10 years ago, won this race in a championship season, his second championship at the time. We're on board with Rahal.
Well, let's not forget one thing. If he's making a calculated decision out there, if they have no chance to score points, they don't want to take a chance of throwing that car into the fence and damaging it too badly, and then that team has to work too hard to get it back up to the position where they were before. They might just sacrifice it and say, hey, it wasn't a good day, let's go home.
Now we saw Dario Franchitti sliding by Scott Pruitt into third place. We have some other action going on. Alex Zanardi is lapping faster than any other car on the racetrack in second. We'll see what he can do when we return live to Portland. One lap to green. You see the cars spread out across this drag strip of a front straightaway because that's what it is. It's a drag strip. Portland International Raceway, a multi-use facility built on property that once housed a small town called Vanport. It was the residential community for people working for Kaiser Industries building Liberty ships during World War II. It was destroyed during a flood. Very little loss of life, fortunately, due to some advance warning. They are used to working with large volumes of water here in Portland. We've certainly had that this weekend. Gary Gerald now has a report on a couple of the racers out there.
Paul Tracy made his initial stop of this race on the first yellow. That's why we didn't see him in the last flurry. As for Dario Franchitti, remember, he was running in the top 5 initially. They had a problem when he came in, some confusion over whether or not they would change tires. While they were changing the tires, they had a wheel gun malfunction on the right front. It cost them an extreme amount of time. I believe he slipped all the way down to around 17th position as a result, Bob.
There you see Paul Tracy, who had such a run earlier this year, picking up 3 straight victories. Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Rio de Janeiro, St. Louis at the new Gateway International Raceway. Dramatic finishes, each and every one of them. Here's our field summary. Alex Zanardi up front after that exchange of the lead on the pit stop. Mo Gugelmin now in second. Jimmy Vasser in third, moving up to third behind his teammate and the Brazilian driver. Scott Pruitt now in fourth. Paul Tracy fifth. Michael Andretti, Mark Blundell. There you see the rest of the field. Max Pappas apparently out of the race. Christian Danner definitely out. His car going off in the festival chicane was the reason that brought out this yellow flag. Juan Fangio 5 laps down. This is a big weekend for Dan Gurney, who owns the cars being driven by P.J. Jones and Juan Fangio II. 30 years ago this weekend, Dan won the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium, the last American to win a Formula One race in a car of his own construction, one of the early Eagle Westlakes. And that, of course, came just 1 week after he and A.J. Foyt teamed up to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Oh, we have a spin.
Spin down there.
I think that was Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt, I believe, spun, trying to get a restart.
Lots of room out there to take evasive action. And the green has come out, so we are back racing once again, and that's the worst news of all for the spinner.
That will only be a local yellow there. Look at him all funneled down in there. Boy, up over the curb, really forcing everybody inside. Al Unser Jr. back at the left of your screen, that bright red and white. Look, he drove a car right off. Oh, they couldn't, they got hooked up. They drove a car right in there. That is Dario Franchitti.
Franchitti and Unser Jr. off in the festival curves, and the yellows are back out. And that was a crash of some pretty tremendous force, given the fact that you're moving fairly slowly there in the festival curves.
Well, they went around there. It almost like they got hooked together. They came through the corner side by side.
There they are at the middle of the screen.
Dario Franchitti's right out there on the outside. That's his car right there. Al Unser Jr. They look hooked. See, they're hooked. They're trying to accelerate. Their wheels are hooked. They've got nowhere to go. Now they separate them.
Spearing into the tires went Dario Franchitti, and there's Al Unser Jr. walking past Franchitti's car, headed back to the pits.
Remember in the earlier interview, Al Unser Jr. talked about to win this race on a day like today in the pregame show, he said you have to stay out of trouble.
Now from overhead, watch the left side of your screen.
Right down in here, you can see the two cars going off. They've hooked wheels in there, and they're trying to accelerate away. There's nowhere to go. It just takes them off the track into the tire barrier.
9 races, 5 DNFs for former series champion Al Unser Jr., who has had a terrible run of luck recently. In that interview on the grid with Danny, he also mentioned, I've got to get my act together and I have to start driving better. Now there is Scott Pruitt, who spun at the head of the straightaway, apparently stalled the car, but did not hit anything. How did he get there? Let's go back and take another look as they came
right
off
here's
turn
his
9.
car right there. And you can see him, he's trying to put the power down on the road. Just got it sideways and kept going. See the wheels still spinning there, and then he stalls it.
I think he thought he could save that. Kept his foot in it, kept the wheel spinning, tried to go through 360 degrees. Couldn't get it done. Now let's take another look at what happened to Al Unser Jr. and Dario Franchitti from Michael Andretti's onboard camera. There goes Scott Pruitt. Right about now, Michael's probably thinking, well, that was close. I'm spinning my wheels. I better be careful. So that was Michael's view of Scott Pruitt's incident, not Al Unser Jr.'s. I beg your pardon. Let's get down to Marty Reed.
Yes, we're down here with a very unhappy Carl Hogan. Carl, you saw the replay and you went over to had a few words with some of the Penske people. Care to share with us your thoughts?
Well, I just asked him if Al said what happened, because that's not like Junior to do something like that. And he, you know, I'm sure something happened and they pushed us off the track, but it's just unfortunate. Get a little sick and tired of this stuff.
Obviously, very, very frustrated Carl Hogan.
The ESPN announced team on the left took up the challenge from Gil de Ferran and our Brazilian colleagues for a pit stop contest. Everybody got ready after a little bit of practice and some bad habits overcome. Marty Reed made sure Gil de Ferran understood the significance of what was about to unfold. Derek Walker flipped the coin. Brazilians won the toss, and you decide who won the race. That's Russ Thompson, our statistical guru. On the right front, Marty Reed. Left front, left rear, Danny Sullivan. Yours truly, right rear. And in the end, by the merest of margins, the Brazilian team triumphed. Although we were good sports about it, I must say. All except for Marty, of course, who threatened bodily injury to driver de Ferran. But it was good fun all around. Back at Portland, we remain under a full course caution. There you see Al Unser Jr.'s machine being lifted behind the barrier. Dario Franchitti's is already there after those two locked wheels and plowed into the tire wall in the festival chicane. We have one lap to the green flag.
I think we ought to just talk briefly, Bob, about that situation, because Carl Hogan was obviously very upset, but I think he was upset before because of the pit stop. They had a problem with the wheel gun. He was already frustrated. They go back out. Dario's been running very well. He tries to make something happen by going around the outside of Little Al. He's on his blind side. They come out of there. They get hooked up wheel to wheel, and they kind of lock in there. Once you're locked up like that, there's nothing you can do. They get onto the grass, and then it's all over. See, right out here, right out there, the two of them are together, and they just get hooked up wheel to wheel. You can't do anything. Once they touch that grass and they're trying to accelerate, it's all over. Neither one of them, they were both passengers there. Neither one of them could control the situation.
You ride with Alex Zanardi, the race leader. Keep in mind, back earlier this year on the streets of Long Beach, California, Alex Zanardi took the lead from Gil de Ferran in the pits and went on for his first and thus far only win of the PPG Kart World Series season. The field summary in the upper left, modified due to the absence of Franchitti and Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal running 2 laps down. Going to rough return to Portland for the elder statesman of the PPG Kart World Series. There's Alex Zanardi. Last year, Zanardi came into this race with comparatively few points, but then simply caught fire, took pole for this race, the beginning of that pole streak that took him all the way to the early parts of this season, and he scored, if I'm not mistaken, 115 points in the second half of the season, far more than any other driver. So we can expect him, if he can catch fire again in the second half of the season, to challenge for the series championship. We saw Bobby Rahal, also a good second half performer. There is Patrick Carpentier, the rookie leader. Carpentier is an interesting story. Before Tony Bettenhausen hired Carpentier, he tested a number of drivers, including a young Danish driver named Tom Christensen. Tom Christensen didn't get the drive. Carpentier did. Christensen just won the 24 Hours of Le Mans driving with Stefan Johansson, who preceded Carpentier in that seat. Green flag, we are back underway. You ride with Michael Andretti. Paul Tracy and Mark Blundell wheel to wheel. Andretti just behind that battle. Then Greg Moore, Brian Herta, and Alex Ribeiro. Moore runs 7th, Herta 8th, Ribeiro 9th, and Parker Johnstone is 10th. Pardon me, Andre Ribeiro, not Alex Ribeiro. His friends call him Alex.
Well, Alex Ribeiro used to be a Formula 3 driver who I raced against in 1975.
Oh, yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Mark Blundell in 5th, having another good run.
He's just passed Paul Tracy for a position.
On the backstretch up to top speed. Here comes Michael Andretti calling on Greg Moore. Tricky series of corners right here.
Very tricky, and that's a very fast corner down there. In the dry, you just tap the brakes and go from 190 miles an hour to about 170 through that series of corners. Look at Michael out there sideways, trying to put the power on the road.
Moore creeping up on Paul Tracy now.
Again, remember, Greg Moore's on Firestone tires. Paul Tracy and Michael are on Goodyears.
Andre Ribeiro has gotten around Brian Herta for 8th place. Now Herta trying to move up under power. It looks very flat, but there is a slight roll and undulation to this part of the racetrack. Turns 3, 4, and 5, like a broad meadow. The drivers go slightly up and downhill through some of these corners. That, of course, helps the drainage. This track dries fairly quickly, except for a couple of places where there are large standing puddles. Parker Johnstone now closing up on Herta. That would be for 9th place.
Taking the inside line, protecting his position a little bit there. He's got a lot of racing left to do to protect it for the entire race.
Raul Boesel to the right of your screen in the orange Brahma sponsored car for Patrick Racing, also in that battle, and so is Michel Jourdain Jr. The Peyton Coyne team has switched over to one Reynard chassis for the young Mexican driver. They got it from Bobby Rahal's team, one of their spares.
Greg Moore took a spot away from Paul Tracy.
Zanardi, Gugelman, Vassar, Blundell, Moore, Tracy. Michael Andretti has dropped back from that battle in 7th. There you see Greg Moore. Alonso Jr. has made his way back to the pit lane. He's standing by with Gary Gerald.
And after a quick change of clothes, Junior, you just can't buy a break this season. What happened in that incident with Frank Edie?
Well, he came diving in underneath. We can't see, no one can see out there right now, and so on these restarts it's really bad as far as your visual. He came blasting in there and moved me over to the left on the right-hander at the beginning of the right-hander. So then we were equal going into the left, and then on the exit, both of us we hooked ourselves into each other and drove us off the racetrack. And so you know, we're fighting for position and ended up getting into each other.
We've got a picture of Franchitti in an animated conversation with his owner, Carl Hogan, at the same time, Junior. You talked before the race in our pre-race show about the importance of patience. Were you trying to be patient today under these tough conditions?
Yeah, I was being as patient as I could. You know, we were backing up more and more and more, and we were definitely patient. You know, he came blasting in there, and you know, you can't be too patient and not be aggressive. It is still a race, and so we were doing that. We were still being real smooth and careful, but we ended up hooking each other, and that's what took us off.
Thank you. Let's go to Marty.
Dario, I know you just had a discussion with your team owner. Care to share your thoughts, what happened out there and what you two shared?
Yeah, well, first of all, myself and Carl were kind of consoling each other. He's a little bit upset, obviously. We were in a good position today. He's not upset with me. You know, he kind of says he feels sorry for me, and I feel really sorry for him because, you know, he's working really hard to get this whole thing working at the moment, the whole team. And, you know, we came in the pits third, went out, whatever, 17. We should have never been in the position we were in on the track. So it's unfortunate.
Did you get a little too aggressive? I mean, Al Unser Jr. was saying there was nowhere for him to go.
Well, I passed him on the straight, and I was a good bit ahead of him on the straight when I passed him at the start-finish line even before. And he came from nowhere and tried to pass me in the left part, and he just kept coming out and out and out. Once we'd hooked up, we couldn't pass each other. You know, we couldn't do anything about it once we'd hooked up. So I'm a little bit upset about it. He was trying something he wasn't really on.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Marty. Well, Marty and Gary were talking to their respective interview subjects. You saw Parker Johnstone get around and pick up a couple of positions. Got around Brian Herta. Johnstone now up into the 8th spot. You also saw Andre Ribeiro flying off in turn 9, getting all the way out to the tire wall, but not hitting anything, working his way back on to the racetrack. Another example of just how hard they go off and how hard it is to stop these cars on this super saturated grass when they do go off. Herta, Boesel, Jourdain Jr. in the thick of that fight in his new Reynard. Well, previously owned, shall I say. But it has worked really well, and the team says that the Rahal team, when they sold them the car, did them a lot of favors. Helped them with setup, left some parts on the car to help make the transition quicker. Jourdain certainly showing it in his performance. Boesel looks down the inside of Herta, chooses not to make the move. The same for Jourdain behind them. Up front, Alex Zanardi, Mauricio Gugelmin, Mark Blundell, 3 former Formula One drivers up front here in Portland. We'll be back with more from the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. Stay with us. Here at Portland, we are ready to go green. Alex Zanardi leads the Pac West teammates. Where have we seen this before? Mauricio Gugelmin and Mark Blundell running nose to tail.
See him getting over in that spray, cooling off the tires a little bit. Because the track is starting to dry.
Michael Andretti with Paul Tracy just ahead. Parker Johnstone down the inside. Marty Reed with more on Paul Tracy.
Yeah, guys, I was wondering why Paul Tracy didn't stop on that last yellow, because he has one more stop in his future. Well, they're gambling that it will go dry. They'll come in, get track position, put on slicks, catch everybody out on the wets.
Well, Marty, I think that the track, if it stays like this, will get dry toward the end of the race. But it is still a lot of spray. Paul Tracy there very sideways. There's still a lot of spray coming off the bottom of those tires, which means this track is still very wet.
And it is really only dripping now. A very, very light rain, but it is raining slightly, and the sky continues to lighten as the clock continues to tick away here in Portland.
Look at this. Those two guys, I'm not so sure they didn't touch there.
This is for 5th place.
It looked like they banged wheels. Parker got out there a little high. Parker trying to take the inside line down the straightaway for traction.
Mark Blundell back from the wet side onto the drier line, and it looks like Johnstone has Tracy for 5th.
Looks like that was the line for him.
Let's take another look and see if they came together from high overhead.
Right out there on the outside. Yes, right there. Oh, sorry, I tried to get a mark on it. But right there, Paul Tracy's right rear.
And we've got action down in the Festival chicane. Walter Salas, the Brazilian rookie, to the right. Andre Ribeiro in the foreground, and Brian Herta. You heard Bobby Rahal, his team owner, say it looked like Brian was making progress. He was well up into the top 10. But right now he is stationary. The view from our Honda Helicam as Salas is put back in action. Now the kart safety team will go to work on the other two cars. Herta on the left, Ribeiro on the right. And the caution flags are back out once again. A full course caution here in Portland. 6th of the day, extending the record for the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. In case you're wondering, G.I. Joe's is not the children's action figure. It's an auto and sports store up here in the Pacific Northwest. Alex Zanardi remains on the racetrack. We thought we might see him visit the pits. Gary Gerald, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Bob, it's interesting because they took the slicks over the wall and they thought they were going to bring him in immediately. And then there was a quick wave off. The reins went back up on the wall. No change, and he stayed out on the course. We expect that we may see him for fuel. They may gamble and stay out and hope for another opportunity. Marty Reed?
Yeah, same situation for Gugelmin and Blundell. The Pac West team is going to wait and see if it dries. They're going to stay out.
The order behind the safety cars: Zanardi, Gugelmin, Blundell, Moore, Johnstone, Tracy, Andretti, Boesel, Jourdain, and Vassar. We'll be back. We're at the halfway mark here at Portland. Welcome back to a rapidly drying Portland International Raceway. We have cars all over the racetrack searching for water to keep those rain tires cool. Let's update our stories. Who is the best weather guru in the pits? Well, that story is still playing out. Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi return. Paul Tracy presently runs in 5th place. Christian Fittipaldi, 6th for Tracy, 12th for Christian Fittipaldi. Fuel strategy, as we mentioned, not as important now that this is more and more looking like a timed race, and one that will not run the original 98 lap distance. And streaks, well, will a Canadian win this race? Will Mercedes-Benz picks up its 6th in a row? Will Jimmy Vassar finish his record-breaking 26th consecutive race? Right now he runs in 10th place after 2 pit stops. All the cars ahead of him have yet to make a second stop. Down to Gary Gerald.
Well, Brian Herta came in, and they're the first one to make the gamble. They've gone to the slick tire. Keep an eye on him as he goes out there now, and we'll see if it's an adventure of the good kind or the bad kind for Brian Herta.
Well, I think at this stage, Gary, he's got to do something. They've got to take an advantage of the situation. Hopefully they'll be the first ones. They've just had that off. He's way back in the field. He's got to try to something to see if he can salvage a good point scoring position. But I'm telling you, from my position, I wouldn't want to be sitting where he is right now.
He's going to test those slicks under acceleration on this damp racetrack. Alex Zanardi gets on the hammer early in turns 8 and 9. Mo Gugelmin right there with him. Blundell, will anybody spin it coming off this corner?
Well, this is a 3rd restart, and Zanardi's always tried to jump him. Brian Herta there, he's with those slicks. Look at that. We'll go to yellow at that position, I would think. It's right coming onto the back straightaway.
Restart on lap 52 of 98 scheduled, but we are less than 35 minutes from the 2-hour mark. This has not been declared a timed race yet, although it looks fairly certain that it will be one. No yellow flag showing for Herta off the racetrack on slip. Alex Zanardi shortly to go on to the backstretch. That's where Herta went off. He didn't even reach turn 9 before he spun off. There is Herta looking at the oncoming traffic. There's the kart safety team to help him refire. That is a pretty exposed position right there, considering how wet that grass is.
Well, he's the only one on slicks. Look, he just spun it off there. Now watch him when he hits the grass. And then the car, look how fast it just keeps going. It's the worst feeling in the world when you hit that grass, because it's just like it accelerates. It's like being on ice.
wall comes looming up at you. Now the field has been told by race control to use extreme caution in the area of that local yellow flag for Herta. Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti.
I don't think you have to tell these guys right now to use extreme caution. They're all tippy-toeing around trying to get the most out of it. But they know it's still very wet, and that will tell a lot of the pits what they wanted to hear was that the track is too damp for slicks.
You see Michael Andretti's progress throughout the afternoon. Saw Michael having to add some steering input to straighten the car up as the rear wheels spin. Woo. Flashing by the scene of Herta's accident.
You know, the hard part from a driver's point of view right now is the conditions are always changing. Down here at this point of the track, we have recorded that they're getting some rain down there. It'll make it slick again. It's very tough for a driver to make up any ground in these kind of conditions.
P.J. Jones shown in 19th place, but he has stopped and he is right on the racetrack, right on the racing line. It shows as a local yellow there, but we do not have yellow flags from the flag stand.
They're going to have to, though, with him in that position. That's right coming out on the back straightaway, and he's right in the middle of the track.
Now we get the double yellow flags as you see the field approaching at a tremendous clip. 7th caution flag of the day. And once again, that is a record. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys get by at any speed.
If you come around there too hot, you may not be able to maneuver except out onto the grass.
Overhead, you see Jones stranded in the middle of the racetrack. His mom and his brother Page are here this weekend. Page, who suffered a tremendous accident a couple of seasons ago, still on the comeback trail. Looking good, following his brother's progress with Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team. Leader in the pits. Gary Gerald is there.
We watch with the crew. He's in the first 2 pits. Right on the marks. This is going to be a short fill. We think only 10 gallons of fuel going on board. There they've disengaged. He's rolling. That was under 7 seconds. Terrific stop.
Mauricio Gugelmin moves into the race lead as Zanardi makes his way down the pit lane, looking for his 2nd victory of the year. He won in the streets of Long Beach, California earlier. He comes into this weekend in 5th place in the standings in the middle of a 4-driver battle over 4th. His teammate Jimmy Vasser has 69. Zanardi has 67. Scott Pruitt is in 6th with 65. And Gil de Ferran is 7th with 61. That scuffle going on behind the top 3 in points: Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, and Greg Moore. We'll be back live, hoping for a green flag here at Portland. Stay with us. Gil Gugelmin is in the lead. Despite a very quick pit stop for Alex Zanardi, Marty Reed has more.
Yes, and it was that pit stop that determined their strategy. They are waiting with slicks on the wall. When they saw Zanardi go back out on wet tires, they said, we're staying out. Big Mo said, that's a good move. He saw Herta going around, and he will hold on as long as he can, try and making the change when the track goes dry.
Thank you, Marty. Alex Zanardi back into the line in 11th spot.
Pace car lights are out. You know, the guy that we really got to wonder about is Paul Tracy. The last time he was in the pits was lap 18. He's gone probably the longest of anybody.
It's a good overhead view of the racetrack. Learned a new word this weekend. See all those bodies of water? Those are called sloughs. Great tradition of racing here in the Portland area. 14th year for the PPG Kart World Series. Interstate 5 in the background, running north into the state of Washington, across the Columbia River. Pits on your left, grandstands on your right. Here comes the safety car in under the Goodyear Bridge. There is Mo Gugelmin leading teammate Mark Blundell. 1 and 2, just as they were 2 weeks ago in Detroit. Now they go to driver's right, looking for water for those tires. And look who's 3rd, as he was 2 weeks ago in Detroit, Greg Moore.
But look who's in 4th is local favorite, Parker Johnstone.
West teammates able to pull away from Moore. And you see that drying line.
That band of the line around the track is drying out. But boy, I can tell you this, if you did go on slicks and it is dry, just off of that line is very treacherous.
It is now virtually dry, hardly raining at all here at Portland. Once again, Mauricio Gugelmin and Mark Blundell try to break through for Bruce McCaw and the Pac West team. Notice the last pit stops. As Danny mentioned, Paul Tracy on lap 18, Raul Boesel on lap 20. As you look at Parker Johnstone, former first trumpet in the Oakland Youth Symphony, turned down some offers of musical scholarships.
He looks like he's trying to make a move on Greg Moore for third spot.
Not quite enough room to make the outside pass. Paul Tracy now looming up with Raul Boesel just behind him. Here you see Parker's progress up to fourth place.
Bob, we've talked about tires to this point, that the Firestone was so good in the wet, but as this track dries, is the Firestone going to continue to be good, or is the Goodyear going to start to come to life there as the track? Look at Paul Tracy, he's right underneath Parker. And I also would imagine that these guys have been managing their fuel very well because they've been under wet conditions, got the mixture turned down, conserving fuel. As it gets drier, they're going to start racing harder. They're going to turn that mixture up.
Marty Reed has more on this battle.
Yeah, Parker Johnstone checked with Barry Green. He says there's no way we can go the distance. We're going to have to stop. And Penske says it's about 7 minutes max. The guy to keep your eyes on is Raul Boesel. They're telling me in the Brahma pit he can go all the way.
Well, at the rate we've been getting yellow flags, we get another one. That's going to play into someone's hands. Mark Blundell, as you see, followed by Greg Moore and Parker Johnstone, adding extra mileage to this 1.96-mile racetrack, having to go all the way over to find that water along the pit wall. From Jimmy Vasser's car, you look back at Gil de Ferran, sticking his nose up one side and now the other.
He's got Alex Zanardi right behind him, breathing all over him after that very quick last pit stop.
7th, 8th, and 9th. We've had 7 caution flags thus far. Roughly an hour and 45 minutes of racing.
My guess is that the guys who have made 2 stops, like Vasser, de Ferran, Zanardi, those guys are in a better position because they've got enough fuel on board. Now the question, of course, will then be tires. Zanardi trying to go inside of Gil de Ferran, up over the curb. They use that a lot in qualifying. They'll get up on that curve. It's very smooth. But look what happened. Gil de Ferran passed Jimmy Vasser.
De Ferran up to 7th, Vasser down to 8th. Alex Zanardi remains in 9th.
Is that an indication of how good the Goodyear is in these drying conditions?
Into the festival curves again. Very tight right-hander. 2nd gear left. And now Zanardi tries to get around his teammate, makes that pass. Zanardi now into 8th.
Jimmy's slowing down a lot, like he's got some kind of a problem. He's dropping way off of the pace at too quick a rate.
There is Vasser, the blue patch on the top of his helmet. Mr. Consistency over the last couple of seasons with 25 straight finishes. 15 of those point-scoring finishes. Paul Tracy. Bright orange and white Penske. Chasing the green and white machine of Parker Johnstone. Right up on the gearbox.
Look at these 2 different lines. Parker turns tight, goes up the inside. Paul Tracy tries to let it go to the outside, and then Parker goes over all the way to the left of your screen, trying to cool the tires off.
Whoops, we got Adrian Fernandez off and on in 9. Michael Andretti bottled up behind Michel Jourdain Jr. See how much the visibility has improved, if that's the right word, on the front straightaway. Gary Gerald.
Well, we're checking on Mauricio Gugelmin, and I just overheard Andy Brown, who's on the radio with the crew, and he says we got 16 minutes of fuel. They know it's going to be a timed race, and it's going to be roughly 19 to 20 minutes of racing time left. You do the math, they're going to come up short.
Oh my, after the events in Detroit 2 weeks ago.
Well, what they're calculating now is they're hoping for another yellow to make that stop under yellow to not lose too much ground.
With fingers and toes crossed. Here comes a battle. Greg Moore, Paul Tracy.
Well, let's not forget the amazing part is that Paul Tracy last stopped on lap 18. So he's gone incredibly long on that amount of fuel.
Paul Tracy got around Parker Johnstone and now does battle with Greg Moore over third place. Moore runs over to the well one more time for another bucket of water, as does Mark Blundell ahead of him. Still pretty wet there in the festival curves. Oh, Tracy getting aggressive now, trying it under acceleration.
Tricky spot to pass there. And don't forget the line that the racing line is a lot drier than the outside. So if they go off there, they don't have as much grip as the other driver will.
There you see a comparison of top speeds on the backstretch. Moore 172 miles an hour. Tracy 167. We'll follow him onto the backstretch this time, see if Moore is able to draw away. Both cars using the same Mercedes engine, a Reynard chassis on Firestone tires against a Penske chassis on Goodyear rubber.
Tricky spot to pass as the track gets drier. That is a faster and faster corner.
The sky continues to lighten as Paul Tracy gets on the gas. Moore stumbled slightly, and Tracy is up into third.
Greg Moore got very sideways coming out onto the straightaway, and Paul Tracy took advantage.
So the order is now Gugelmin, Blundell, Tracy, Moore, Johnstone, Boesel, de Ferran, Zanardi, Fittipaldi, and Walter Salas now in 10th place, despite that spin in the festival curves earlier in the race. We anticipate pit stop shortly.
And the question will be, if they make that pit stop for fuel, do they go ahead and put slick tires on?
See the last pit stop for all the front-running drivers. Blundell hounded by Paul Tracy.
Looks like the Goodyear tire in these conditions is better. Remember, they're lapping in the 1 minute and 14 to 13 second bracket. As the track dries, they'll go quicker than that, but they qualified at 59 seconds. So they're running almost 15 seconds off of the qualifying pace in the drive.
But 3 to 4 seconds quicker than they were in the opening laps of this race in a torrential rain. Paul Tracy is in. Marty Reed awaits him.
This is going to be interesting. Our second installment of Captain Courageous. They're going to put slicks on this car. Remember, Brian Herta took the merry-go-round, and now we're going to find out if all this strategy has paid off as they get all 4 tires changed, just enough fuel to get to the end of the race. He is there. He's away.
10.6 for the Penske crew. We were 1391.
Yeah, do the math.
In our glory.
Look at that. He's trying to put the power down. Whoa, he came out there high. He's got to be very careful, but look, he's...
PJ straight lining the chicane.
Now what he can do, he can come up there and wait. He cannot improve his position. They'll hold him there for a second and let him go back out on the track.
Oh, Paul Tracy goes around. Heads up.
Look out. Through those are just cardboard. Oh, that one's not cardboard that he's going to. Look at that. He's trying to get it back on the track. Keep it running. See him lighten up the tires. See him spinning. That was very good to keep it running, but look how wet those tires are.
Shining in the water on the grass. Here comes Scott Pruitt.
See, one of the problems that they have, too, is not only did he go out on slicks, but those tires are stone cold, and they've got no heat in them. He's trying to get heat up into the tires.
This is Raul Boesel and Gil de Ferran. Alex Zanardi. 5th, 6th, and 7th. Here's another look at what happened to Paul Tracy.
He just comes out. He's on the dry line. Gets over there just a little bit. Tries to put the gas on. Adios. Now, these are just made of cardboard or something that they can run through. Hey, look at that.
Bob and Daddy, it's interesting because watching down the big screen on pit road here, Christian Fittipaldi's crew had slicks out. They were going to make the change. They've just pulled them back. I think they changed their mind based on what happened to Tracy.
Can't blame him for that. Paul Tracy back on the racetrack, but he has paid the price of his move to slick tires. We'll be back with more from Portland International Raceway as the seconds continue to tick away. Welcome back live to Portland. There is Mauricio Gugelmin. And passed by Brian Herta. Mark Blundell shown as the race leader.
Well, he just came out of the pits, Bob, and he's got slick tires on, so they're probably not up to temperature. He's going to tiptoe a little bit so he doesn't have an off.
So the Pac West team is splitting their fortunes this time. They have one car. Gugelmin's on slicks. Blundell is still on his wets. Greg Moore runs second. Gil de Ferran third. Alex Zanardi fourth. Christian Fittipaldi is fifth in a triumphant return to the PBG Kart World Series after 7 races off with a broken leg.
Well, and Big Mo got off, and there goes Paul Tracy again, but you saw Gugelmin get it real sideways, and he kind of controlled it.
And what do these two cars have in common? They're both on those slick tires. Gary Gerald.
We saw Gugelmin, the teammate to Blundell, get service in 10 seconds, took on slicks. Blundell also gets the slicks. They're slow to disengage. Now he rolls. This is a 12-second stop with a little glitch on the pullout.
Greg Moore comes out behind Mark Blundell. Now, if you're asking yourself, why would they be going to slicks after they watch Paul Tracy and Mauricio Gugelmin sliding all over the place? Last clean lap for Paul Tracy, 1 minute 6.4 seconds. Mark Blundell on the wets, 1 minute 14.2. Looks like a fire for Walter Salas.
Don't forget the call for slick tires to wet, although you just showed the reason why, but the call for that tire is usually down to the driver and the team. They do it together.
What a weekend for Salas and the Davis Racing team. Because of an electrical glitch, he got no practice Friday morning. His first laps in the car were in Friday first round qualifying. Salas, a race winner in the PPG Firestone Indy Light Series here at Portland 1 year ago. You ride with Gil de Ferran, who is now the race leader after the pit stop by Blundell. He is on wets, and notice how dry the line is. He's not looking for water yet, perhaps knowing that he doesn't have far to go to the checkered flag.
Let's not forget Paul Tracy's lap was about 8 seconds a lap quicker than his, but if you keep falling off the track, it doesn't matter. You keep giving it back to him anyway.
You beat everybody else by 8 seconds on the lap, and you spent 15 seconds trying to get out of the grass.
Just like Al Unser Jr. said in the pregame show, he said that it's managing, not making any mistakes.
Here comes Christian Fittipaldi. His father Wilson is here this weekend for the first time since the season opener in Homestead, Florida, to watch his son race. There is Alex Zanardi running in second place. De Ferran on the left, then Zanardi. Excuse me, Christian Fittipaldi runs second, Zanardi third. Couldn't believe what my eyes were showing me there. Slower traffic ahead of De Ferran.
Everybody, the leading 2 cars are running on wet tires, and it looked like Zanardi as well because he went over there to cool him off on the damp spot in front of the pits.
Now he's coming up behind P.J. Jones, and this brings up another element of the wet versus dry tire story. You're on dries, on a dry line. You come up behind a slower car, you have a lot less traffic, a lot less racetrack to work with to get around him as you would if you were on the wets and could go off onto the wet part of the racetrack.
That's right. It's a very tricky pass to go offline on slick tires.
And now it is official. We will run to the 2-hour time limit, which means that there are Roughly 9 minutes and 20 seconds left in the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. Greg Moore shown in 7th place.
Of course, he has been into the pits, and he is on slicks, as is Maurizio Gugelmin in the car right behind him.
Lap times for the cars on dry tires. Paul Tracy just did a 1:07. Mark Blundell a 1:09. The race leader Gil de Ferran on wets a 1:14. But he did have slower traffic out there with him. Plenty of drama still to come. We'll be back for the checkered flag in a moment. We are back live at Portland. If you're tuning in for SportsCenter, stand by. It'll be following auto racing here on ESPN. Enjoy the final laps of the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 with us. Gil de Ferran in the red, white, and blue Valvoline-sponsored car is the race leader. Just behind him in red with Budweiser sponsorship is Christian Fittipaldi. And running third in line, though he's a couple of laps down, P.J. Jones. And Jones looking very racy at this point. PJ running 20th, 4 laps down. Now our race began on a thoroughly wet racetrack with rain falling hard. Scott Pruitt started from pole with Gil de Ferran alongside. Water flying everywhere in the early laps of this race. Cars on and off the racetrack. Some cars, including Bobby Rahal, a 3-time series champion, dropping out after difficulty in dealing with the wet conditions, but they have been drying steadily. And the teams have begun to go from the full wet treaded tires to the slick dry tires and reaping the benefits in terms of lap time. But the race leader, Gil de Ferran, is on wet tires as the seconds continue to tick away. Less than 6 minutes to go in this race now. Christian Fittipaldi, who broke his right leg and his left foot in a savage crash on the streets of Surfers Paradise in the second race of the season. Spent 75 days away, 20 of them in a wheelchair, but applied himself to 8 to 10 hours a day of physical therapy. Got well ahead of the rehabilitation curve. A couple of weeks ago had 2 of the 4 surgical screws in his right leg taken out. He's driving with a brace on his leg. He said it himself, it's unusual that I can drive the race car, but I can't walk without crutches. Right now, back for the first time since April 6th, he runs in 2nd place with a shot at winning his first PPG Kart World Series victory. Coming up on 5 minutes to go in the race. You see the laps in the upper left-hand corner. They are now completely irrelevant. This is now a timed race. We'll be up against the 2-hour time limit. We'll get to SportsCenter as quickly as possible after the checkered flag. Less than 5 minutes to go now.
Yeah, these laps right up here in your top of your screen, just disregard those. They are not important right now.
Now there is Greg Moore in that blue and white machine running in 5th place. Excuse me, 4th place. He has gotten around Michael Andretti, and he is running up behind Alex Zanardi, who runs 3rd. Just behind him, Mark Blundell is also looking for a position. The front straightaway now almost completely dry. Zanardi way over on the left, and Parker Johnstone is off the racetrack. But he keeps the fires lit, struggles to get back on. Zanardi goes straight on in the festival chicane.
And he's not slowing down. Shades of Laguna Seca.
Now, will that be considered a legal move? He didn't straight line it and stay on the drag strip, but he cut across the gravel trap. I actually lost a position, so there's no competitive advantage gain. I imagine he'll be okay. 3 minutes and 45 seconds to go.
Well, Mark Blundell benefited the most from that, and Greg Moore seemed to have lost the most ground. Look at
Whoa,
this.
Zanardi is off again. That goes to what I was saying earlier. It is very wet offline. You see the lighter line, that is the dry line. If you get off on the wet stuff with slick tires, you are going for a ride. From the fastest part of the racetrack, using the left and right hand curbs, being very delicate on the throttle, shifting down to 3rd. 3 minutes to go in the race. Raul Boesel goes goes up the right-hand side of Alex Zanardi.
And
Paul
there's
Tracy.
Paul Tracy back in the mix again.
Now that is Patrick Carpentier, who is 1 lap down in 13. They go flashing by the Bettenhausen Motorsports machine. Carpentier looking for water to keep those treaded wet tires cool. 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Gil de Ferran looking for his first victory of the year. There he is on the left of your screen. He had a pole position. He has 2 poles this year, one on the streets of Long Beach, California, one 2 weeks ago in Detroit.
But look at the back of that pack is Mark Blundell, and he is on slick tires.
Blundell's last lap, 1:04.733. Gil de Ferran's 1:10.016. So Blundell easily the quicker car. Jimmy Vasser has spun in the Festival Chicane as de Ferran, Fittipaldi, and Blundell combined. Now Blundell, can he get around? Can he get off the dry line, maintain car control, and get past Christian Fittipaldi? 1 minute and 45 seconds to go.
That's what I was going to say. And can he do it in 1 minute and 45 seconds?
Time and space to begin to compress in the last laps of the race. Blundell looks down the inside of Fittipaldi, but the Brazilian gives him nothing.
And that turns into the outside out there.
We anticipate a white flag next time by, meaning 1 lap to go as they flash down the backstretch up to about 180 miles an hour. Blundell strikes again to Fittipaldi's left and takes second place. Meanwhile, Gil de Ferran has drawn away from this battle over second. There is de Ferran onto the front straightaway. Does Blundell have time to run him down?
I think he can close the gap, but he's got to be able to get by him. He's got to be able to make that pass.
Keep in mind, they've got this very broad front straightaway that Blundell can use if he has to. Fittipaldi, using that left foot braking he's not familiar with, lights up the front tires. Blundell is right there with de Ferran. 2 weeks ago in Detroit, Blundell missed out on his opportunity for his first career victory when he ran out of fuel with one corner to go in the race. And now he has another chance here in Portland. Looking left and right around de Ferran. It's a much narrower racetrack because he is on those slick tires.
Not only that, it's a narrower racetrack because look at Gil de Ferran knows it's the last lap. He is not going to give him any ground. And it'll be interesting at the end of this straightaway to see what lines Gil de Ferran takes. Does he go down the inside and protect his position? Yes, he does.
Blundell looks down the inside. 3 more corners to go, and then he'll have that wide and dry front straightaway. It'll be a drag race on the drag strip here at Portland. Off the corner they come.
Oh, it's going to be a photo finish.
Blundell, here comes Boesel in third. To the line they come. And Mark Blundell takes the victory in his 22nd career start. The Englishman into the win column in PBG kart competition, getting Gil de Ferran on the straightaway. Team owner Bruce McCaw and the team can celebrate after being denied in Detroit. Another look. De Ferran up top, Blundell in the middle, Boesel on the bottom. And look at the speed differential as Blundell powers past to the flag right there. The margin of victory, 0.027 seconds, 27 1/1000ths of a second. Raul Boesel third, 55 1/1000ths of a second. The top 3 cars covered by less than 6 100ths of a second. What a finish.
Blundell, 2 weeks ago, the conversation we had was one of heartbreak and frustration, and now it's turned totally around. What are you thinking right now?
I'm so happy. I mean, I'm just so happy for all my guys, and they did a tremendous job. You did it! All my team, you know, we've been getting there slowly but surely, and we said the last race, it was not a matter of how, it was when. And we're here!
Yeah! When, on that last lap, you knew it's a timed race. You see the white flag. Did you think at that point you would be able to chase de Ferran down? You, of course, with a slick tire advantage on a drying racetrack.
Well, you know, John Anderson, team manager, was keeping me very well informed. He told me it was going to be a time race, and we were well ahead of the game. I mean, you know, we had a little bit of luck there with Moore going off, but we got caught out also with Matsushita. I mean, he did a terrible job for us, and then a little bit of luck changed, and we're here.
Did you know at the checkered flag that you had him, or did you have to wait on the radio?
No, I didn't know I won. I didn't know. I just had it, the flag. I didn't take any notice of it. I just wanted to get by de Ferran so much. And I was on the radio, and I was asking the guys, have I won? Or where am I? Where are we finished? And I was waiting for them to say third or second or something like that. And they said, we've won.
Welcome to Victory Lane. Let the celebration commence. Gil de Ferran, you talk about high drama in critical moments. I don't know how it could be much more dramatic than what you just went through. How concerned were you with him coming in that last lap?
Well, we knew it was going to be very, very difficult. I was doing the best I could to hold him back, and on the last lap, coming into the strip, we were getting a lot of wheel spin over there, and I made sure I stopped the car to try to get out of that turn as fast as I could, but unfortunately got a little bit more traction. There was a drag race to the start-finish line. You know, it was a good result for us. Obviously disappointing, but losing the win. But you know, it was nevertheless a good race for us.
As fast as you were going as you crossed the finish line, did you know that you had won or lost the race?
I thought I won the race because I thought the start-finish line was about 50 yards before, and that would have been enough for me. So, but you know, next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The move to slick tires pays off in the dash to the finish for Mark Blundell as he catches Gil de Ferran and snatches victory away. This is the first victory in kart for the sophomore driver Blundell, who